Hello, and welcome to another episode of Variedades do Brasil. My name is Kevin Freer, and I'm very happy to be here with some special guests tonight because opera is in the house. I'm here with three very talented people, New Yorkers, great soloists, a composer, all about to talk about their influence of Brazilian opera and how it affects everybody who loves this type of genre. I'm very happy to introduce tonight Pamela Lloyd, Tiago Tibero, and Andrew Costello. Andrew and Pamela are two dynamic soloists working within opera, and that has a special meaning for people who don't understand it. And Tiago is a renowned composer, and their influence is drawn from Carlos Gomez, who was also a very prominent composer in the New World and one of the first composers to be accepted within the Italian opera community. And we're going to talk about their influence on their work and what they do. So please, we're also here to discuss Opera Dolce, which is Pamela and Andrew's very fine opera company, and their upcoming presentation of Oceans Apart, which will be performed in New York on October 8th at the Good Shepherd Faith Church on West 66th Street. So let's talk about the Brazilian influence in your life and how it affects the work that you've done and what your influences are from that.
A long time ago, I was singing in a work by Carlos Gomez at the Amado Opera. And I really enjoyed it. The character was great. And it was one of his later operas, Fosca. Not Tosca, but Fosca.
Fosca. Yeah. Okay.
Yes. And then later on, I was singing in Germany, and then back here, and back and forth. And then Pamela and I formed this new opera company called Opera Dolce.
Opera Dolce.
Yeah. And this is a few years ago we formed the company. And so I was at a conference for nonprofit theaters here in New York. And I met a lady. Her name is the lady who plays tango. Remember? Polly Furman.
Polly Furman, yes.
Polly Furman.
A pianist.
And I said we were looking around for some unusual pieces that we could do, things that are not usually done in the operatic world, because we wanted to set ourselves apart from the usual repertoire and make a name for ourselves as an opera company. So she said, well, how about a Latin American composer? And I thought, well, Carlos Gomez. He's the most prominent.
There you go.
Most prominent Latin American composer. Because Polly Furman, she's from, I believe, Uruguay. And she said, well, why don't you do a Latin American composer? You know, it's close to her heart. So I thought, wow, we could do we could perform the works of Carlos Gomez. So and at that point, I had only known Carlos Gomez music through Fosca, and I really enjoyed it. But then we started researching and listening to his music. And it was, I mean, now that we're in the internet age, all of his music is on the internet. So we started listening to his first Italian opera, which was Il Guarani, and then we listened to also Joana de Flandres, which was one of his operas that he produced when he was first in Brazil. And
it's in Portuguese.
Salvatore Rosa, and the wonderful, wonderful recordings. And Pam and I thought, you know, this is fantastic music.
Now, it's very interesting because the Brazilian community should really understand it's such a big country. There are so many influences from it. A
Yes.
lot of the things that Carlos Gomez did was he was the first successful world composer that went to Italy, was accepted there. I think he was at first La Scala, was it, that he had done?
Yeah, he was the first non-European composer to be accepted inside of Europe, as one very famous, fantastic composer, which he is. I mean, he really does deserve that. The story goes, that his brother, José Pedro, who was older, was a conductor. And so seeing that he was, that he also was very talented for music, he said, go through this program so that you can get the emperor to actually fund your studies, which he did. And guess what? Dom Pedro actually funded his studies.
Wow.
So that took him to the Academy of Music in Rio de Janeiro, from which he graduated. And then he composed 2 operas, which were huge hits in Rio. So the emperor decided then to send him to Italy to study. So sent him to Milan, and he took a 4-year degree, which he finished in 3 years. And then he wrote Il Guarani in 1870. It was premiered, and it was a gigantic hit. I mean, really, really huge hit. And there's a really funny story about that one premiere.
Yeah,
Oh, yes.
Yeah, Carlos Gomez was at the premiere, of course. He was sitting in the audience, and he
Very
somehow
nervous.
felt,
Yeah.
he was very nervous, and he somehow felt that, the audience, they don't like it, that it's going to be a failure.
He thought they
would-
hate it. Oh
They're
my
gonna
God,
shoot
they
me.
hate
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, so the story goes, he climbed up on top of the parapet of the
Of the
theater.
theater.
And he was about to kill himself. He was about
Wow.
to yeah.
And somebody dragged him back.
And somebody went up there and said, Maestro Gomez, what are you doing?
They're calling for you.
And he
The
said-
audience was calling
he said,
for him.
it's a failure, I'm a failure. He says, no, the audience loves you. Come down, they want to congratulate you. So they carried him onto the stage. They brought him on the stage after the performance, and he stood on stage, and in front of everybody, he stood there, and everybody applauded him and cheered him and shouted, bravo.
Wow.
Can you imagine just standing
Apparently
there?
for a long, long time.
Yes.
And he was there, I don't know how many hours. They just loved him.
That's great.
Yeah.
Why is everything all so dramatic with opera people?
It just is. It just
It
is.
just is.
And that's especially true of composers, I'm afraid. I mean, we tend to be pretty dramatic people.
And honestly, that's a very good thing, because I had a conversation with Pamela where we'll show a clip from Pamela doing one of her solo performances where literally everything comes out in opera through the voice, right?
Yes.
All the emotion, all the heartbreak, everything that you feel. Like in other ways of communication, it's different, but in opera, the voice just takes over, right?
It's all in the music,
In the music and voice.
and it tells you. It tells you the story in the music, the words as well, of course, but the music tells you. It leads you into what you can feel, and some of his pieces are so wonderful and complex that you could feel anything, and it's valid.
Right.
You know, it really.
Yeah.
There's so many options open to you that every time you do it can be a little different, but it's always, like you said, it's
But this
it's
is like-
never a small. I'm feeling kind of sad. No.
Or a naked emotion. And that's what the audience wants. That's what the audience craves.
Now, Thiago, you have your own Fourth Estate Orchestra. When I first met Pamela and Andrew, it was interesting. I saw them perform one of your works,
Yeah.
Watuna. Tell us a little bit about how you guys met and what pieces
Yeah.
that you've done together.
Yeah. So I got involved with a friend of mine, well, really with 2 friends of mine, in the creation of a Brazilian opera company. And basically we wanted to create something new. And, something that had to do with operas that were more modern, but that people actually wanted to listen to. So I was approached by these two friends, and they basically said, Thiago, you have this opera that you told us that you're writing. I'm like, yes, I do. They said, okay, well, can you give us something from it so that we can have in this program? And of course I said, yeah. So I sat down, I wrote this aria, and it's an aria about a god that comes down to earth to create people. And I had no idea that someone as amazing and as godlike as Andrew was actually going to sing, because I mean, he got on stage and he's so tall and his voice is so powerful. I mean, this guy is, was like raw power, and it was just amazing. It was really, it was really amazing to see.
Carlos Gomez wrote some big stuff. He wrote a real variety. He lived in a time where opera was changing. It wasn't. It was much more naturalistic. They called it Verismo, and he was one of the first people to help establish that that kind of
writing, right?
That kind of writing, that kind of point of view,
aesthetic.
that kind of aesthetic, yeah. And all of his pieces tend to be a little different, depending on the subject matter. And it's really amazing if you listen to Lo Schiavo, his opera that's set in Brazil. There's an intermezzo, which will be in our concert that Thiago is going to be conducting with his orchestra. And you can hear it's dawn in the rainforest. You can hear it. So there's a delicacy in the way it grows, how as the sun comes up, as the flowers come up, the sound gets bigger and more lush, but it starts off very simply. And Salvatore Rosa is very Italianate. It's a painter who's a freedom fighter, and which is in several other operas. By other people
I understand
as well.
Verdi actually declared Gomez a musical genius.
Yes, he did.
Right.
He said this young man takes off, starts where I took off, where I. What did he say exactly?
Starts where I finished.
Starts where I finished. So he basically said, "This is my heir. This is my heir to Italian opera."
So it's kind of interesting because in your Oceans Apart, in this collaboration between Fourth Estate Orchestra and Opera Dolce, we're going to listen to the influence of both Gomez and Wagner.
His music reflected his climate, in Northern Europe, and also Gomez heard Wagner's music and was influenced by it. So even though he's a very Italian composer, very influenced by Verdi as well, which is really clear if you listen to his music, there's also something more in there. There's the influence of the native music of Brazil, of the sounds of Brazil. But there's also the
folk songs.
And the folk songs.
Yeah.
But there's also, he was also influenced by the other genre of opera that was coming, that was very influential at that time, which was the German Romantic music. So he kind of coalesced all of these influences and has his own voice.
Wagner's operas, with a few exceptions, were all about creating something fantastic, okay? Like some kind of fairy tale-like story. So if you think of, for instance, Fosca, which was written in 1873, right? And if you look at Wagner, I mean, Tristan was 1865, 1868 was the Master Singer, 1869 was The Ring, 1870 he writes and does Il Guarani. 1871 you have both Aida by Verdi, and for Wagner you have the Valkyries. Okay, so 1873 he writes Fosca. And Fosca sounds very Wagnerian, okay? So it premieres, people hate it, they hate it. They were like, what happened to this guy who was such a great composer? This is awful. I mean, the Italians hated this piece. So he actually revised it. And then again in 1876 or 79, it came out again with the second version, which was much more, back to the old, kind of sound that was more more bel canto and
more
more
familiar.
Speaking of Fosca, I think that what we're going to do is let's go to a clip of Pamela Lloyd in Fosca.
You look so miserable in that video. What happened?
I don't know, it was a bad day.
The way it ends is like your entire heart is into that scene. You're just bringing that voice out and putting everything that you have into it, the entire spirit. We really are very, very happy to be here with you, Opera Dolce, and you're maestro for the Fourth Estate Orchestra.
and I'm very happy to be working with them too.
Oh,
Yeah,
we're
we're
very
very-
excited.
We're very excited about our upcoming
this.
concert.
It's going to be so fun because you're going to hear this link between Wagner and Gomez, and it really, but they're different enough so that you get variety, but yet it complements the two two different composers really complement each other.
While we're in that space, let's take a look at Andrew, and from Il Guarani, his solo performance in that piece.
That is a very tricky aria, I think. He's talking about dancing and drinking
And girls.
and girls,
Of
and
course.
also about his never-ending powers of
Machismo.
machismo. That's the word. He says, well, you know, my hair never gets gray, if you know what I mean.
You put Brazilian with Italian, oh my goodness.
Yeah, and in this aria, it's a Spanish adventurer singing in Italian in a Brazilian opera. Well, you can't ask for more. I mean, you know, it's a great combo.
As a composer, you know, we tend to think that you're sitting down and you're writing these like long pieces for like a year and a half. You're actually producing a variety.
If you think of any profession, you know, and how you may have to juggle different things during your day-to-day life, it's pretty much the same way. I mean, you know, we sit and we say, okay, I'm going to work on my opera today. And then, you know, we got a phone call and someone says, hey, I have this film, really needs a score. Can you write me a score for it? And I say, okay, can you send it to me? Let me look. Okay, I look. I love the film. I go, okay, I have to write this. So put the opera aside, write the film score, you know, shorter project.
You're writing a film score now for a Brazilian movie, correct?
Yeah, Brazilian movie.
Very nice.
In commemoration of the 450 years of Rio de Janeiro.
We also have another piece coming up.
Shostakovich, it's his 10th symphony. It's the very ending of the symphony that I conducted with the Neogeba Youth Orchestra in Brazil, in Salvador, Brazil, this past November.
A youth orchestra in
And
Brazil.
Fantastic youth orchestra. They played so amazingly well, and you know there was such a high energy in there. It was completely packed, and I turned around, everybody was on their feet already, clapping, and I mean it was amazing.
I think right now we're going to go to a
the
tape
clip, yeah.
for you,
Yeah.
and that will be
Shostakovich.
Shostakovich. right. Hey, man, that was great.
You're tired?
Who says
Are
we
you
all have
tired?
I was actually exhausted. I mean, because I had conducted, I think, 2.5 hours of dress that day, and then I did the concert. And the Shostakovich is so draining for me, you know, because it's like just raw emotion, just anger and
The
angst
Russian
and,
influence there,
I mean,
right?
everything that's, you know, it was just amazing. So when I walked off stage, I actually did this. They had kids from Brazil, they had kids from Venezuela, they have kids from Chile. There's kids from Europe. I mean, from everywhere there, and they're just absolutely fantastic. And so that's what's happening with our orchestra now. You know, the Fourth Estate is a brand new orchestra.
How big will the orchestra be for that?
About 50 on stage, plus these guys, you know, plus 3 singers.
Plus the
50
soloist.
on stage.
They are really coming together. So I have string players from China. I have a harpist who is coming from Spain specifically for our concert. She said,
Wow.
"I have to do this concert.
that's
You
great.
cannot
That's
get
exciting.
any other
Nice.
harpist." You know, and so she's flying here. You know, just for this concert.
What a
It's just like,
fantastic instrument.
It's gonna be an amazing concert, guys. It's really
Oh,
gonna
yeah.
be
Wow.
fantastic.
How many performances and how many
It's
seats?
about 300-seat theater, and we're doing one performance.
One
It is
performance.
One
Performance.
And there's still room for people to get into this?
Yes, there is.
And there is still room to play in our orchestra as well. So
Yeah.
if someone out there has that kind of interest and they want to join us, go to fourthestate.org, fourth-estate.org. There's a sign-up form there. You can audition. Send us like a YouTube video of you and send us your CV or your resume, and you can come play with us. It'll be incredible.
We also have operadolce.org,
Yes.
which is Pamela and Andrew's.
Yes.
Right.
And then we have the whole concert is on our website. We saw some clips from our concert, but we have the entire concert
From last year.
from last year that we did
Yeah.
last year, which was a concert of All Gomez. And this year's concert will also be on our website.
We have time for one more
Absolutely.
clip
Maria Tudor. Yeah.
Maria Tudor.
Tudor, yes.
Yeah.
With the tenor Adam Cromer, who
with the
sang with
tenor
us.
Adam Cromer. Let's show it now before we leave.
That was
From Maria Tudor.
Maria Tudor. That was tenor Adam Cromer.
And you can see in that aria what Andrew was talking about, that great gift of melody. That aria, I think, has just gorgeous. The clip you saw shows one of the melodies. In this one aria, there's, I don't
Who's
know.
outstanding?
That,
Just
yeah.
melody after melody after melody poured on.
It's amazing.
And
Yeah.
yes, and they linked together so beautifully. And Adam did a fantastic job with it.
Now, probably his most famous melody comes from the opening of the opera Il Guarani from 1870, right? Bam, bam, ba-ba-dam, bam,
That's
ba-ba-dam,
and that's also
bam, ba-dam, bim, bam, 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 and then it continues.
yeah. That's also in the opening credits that,
it's- yeah.
that we have.
Yeah,
Yes.
and it's just, I mean, it's just
So let's hear a
wonderful.
wonderful piece. Let's go
Okay.
to the clip that we have for Il Guarani,
The finale.
This is
the finale.
Finale, yeah.
fantastic.
And this is what you can expect when you see their performances.
that was the ending of Guarani. Fantastic piece. Now, something to be said about 4 or 5 different pieces from the 3 operas which we are performing by Gomez is that I've gone back to the manuscript and we're actually restoring all of them from the manuscript.
Wow.
So they're going to be as perfect as possible based on what he wanted to hear.
We'd like to thank all our friends in the Brazilian community and all others who are watching us tonight. We've had a wonderful evening with Opera Dolce and the maestro. And I'd like to thank my guests Pamela Lloyd, Andrew Costello, Giago Tabero, composer extraordinaire. And please, please, please go see their show October 8th. It's at the Good Shepherd Faith Church on West 66th Street. It's going to be absolutely a delight, and I hope that you enjoyed this evening and will enjoy many more of these people's fine performances as they move along in their careers and provide us with even greater excitement to look forward to. Thank you for watching.